Hey, this is Wileen Benson, and you are on the Daily Gratitude Call, where we start every day in gratitude. Gratitude is the highest energy state that we can be in. It creates a frequency of positive vibration that attracts positive experiences into our lives. Hey everybody, this is Wileen Benson. This is our Daily Gratitude Call. I'm excited for us to reflect today on something that is near and dear to my heart right now, and especially with all of the kind of upset and turmoil that's been going on in our country, and possibly even some of our freedoms that we have enjoyed in the past are, we're not feeling in some areas as free as we have in the past. And also some of the things that have been suggested, like taking down statues of our founding fathers and things like that, is really, to me, a slap in the face to all of the sacrifice and the bloodshed in the early days of our country that really anchored in and, secured our freedom here. And I just am really feeling sentimental about that. And several of those who are on our call live had shared things about, gratitude for founding fathers and the freedom that we have in our country. And for obvious reasons, because of all the stuff that's kind of going on in our country and in the world right now, I'm feeling especially just reminiscent, I don't know what that word is, sentimental, I think is the word that I'm looking for. But feeling especially sentimental to my history lessons in grade school and junior high and high school about, all the work that people did to help us to have a free country. And so today, we're going to do a silent private meditation on gratitude for remembering freedom and see what that brings. So 90 seconds private silent meditation on gratitude for remembering freedom, and begin. All right. The thought that came to me was that all of the men who, in the early days of our country, who were committed to really creating the colonies as a separate entity, were really putting their physical lives on the line. And they were not afraid of physical or spiritual commitment. 100% dedicated. And the thought came to me, I know I've heard stories of some of those men who signed the Declaration of Independence and others who were, early leaders and those who were inspiring freedom for our, fighting for our freedom. Their wives and families also were at risk. I can't remember, I think it was Thomas Jefferson's wife who escaped through the back door and into the woods in the wintertime when her home was broken into. I think it was, she had one of her children with her that died of exposure. And so the wives and children of these men who were so dedicated, they were willing to put their lives at stake as well. And I'm sure that, anyway, I haven't read, a lot of stories. I know I want to. There's some books that I really want to read about this, but that was really the main thing that really came to me, is they were willing to put everything on the line, everything that they loved, their own lives, the lives of their families, to have freedom. It was freedom or death. There was no other option. And they had experienced being under the rule of a king that wouldn't allow them to worship or to live as they would like. And so they knew what the alternative was if they didn't have freedom. And the word defending my freedom came to me, that rather than fighting for my freedom, that defending my freedom feels more accurate to what our founding fathers did. There's a lot of fighting going on right now with riots and things like that, and angry voices that are declaring that they have not been allowed to be free. And it feels very, defending my freedom feels like more of a peaceful way to go about it. And that's just something that I'm pondering on right now. Who else has something that they would like to share?
I do.
Thanks, Ruby, and then Melinda, and then Kathy.
When I was 18, I joined the armed forces, as most of my family throughout life has done. We've all the way back to Robert de Bruce of Scotland. We've all done our time to serve our countries. To me, the most important thing is we need to understand what freedom is. We need to understand our freedom and protect our freedom, explore for our freedom. Remember the Mayflower, those first courageous folks that brought families over, that helped colonize America. We need to remember in freedom to respect others' choices and their freedoms and desires to be free. Serving our country with honor and honoring, more importantly, our forebears, all of those that preceded us, and the lives that were given in every war, everywhere, to fight for freedom.
Awesome. You had some really powerful words. Adding to my defending my freedom, I've written protect my freedom, respect freedom, and honor those who have ensured our freedom. Thank you. Melinda, I think you had something.
I was just thinking about when 9/11 happened. I was a senior in high school, and I remember the morning it happened. It took us about 30 minutes to get to school, and every morning, and my mom and I would drive in, and my brother, and that's when we first heard what was happening. That was when the first plane hit, and my mom was devastated. I felt silly in the fact that I didn't know what was happening. I didn't understand what was going on, but she explained it to me, and she was very kind, and I remember the the antsiness that I felt, kind of similar to kind of what I feel like in a different way, in a more mild way, but the unknown feeling that you feel, like with quarantine kind of concept of like, what is happening? And I remember getting to school, and all of us were gathered around in our history teacher's classroom, and we're like, what is happening? And that's when we saw the second plane hit. And I know that the feeling that was put in a lot of my fellow classmates' hearts about protecting our country. And my husband and I are the same age, and so is something we both kind of went through at a similar time in our lives. And the passion that were put into, and I don't want to say just young boys, but the passion that I saw especially put into these young boys of, I got to go and make a difference, and I got to go and protect my country. And so that drive and that passion was always there for my husband. And a few years later, as he joined the Army, and as we did the military life for a little while, watching the passion that is innately put in us as citizens of the United States to protect our freedom, to protect our country, and the honor that comes with that, and versus what's going on now, and the unknown of just feeling that peace, that there are those out there who have that passion and drive to protect us. And so as riots and things have happened, I felt peace knowing that my husband, my neighbor, my family, my community around me is ready to go and protect and defend, like, the freedom of speech. And as people are out there being free to speak, there's also those around just protecting our homes, protecting our businesses, and how the balance works out in that, and how we have something so beautiful here because of the passion, this divine passion of others to protect us as a community as a whole. It just brings me to tears, and helps me understand the blessing that we have, and each of us have our own part in that, where that comes down to small community or to this government as a whole, we all can make a difference.
Wow, beautiful. I just want to share a couple of thoughts that might inspire someone they've inspired that passion within some of us. That the thought came to me that my husband's mother, she's passed away now. She passed away in her 90s. She told me about when she was sitting in church. They were in church when they announced over the pulpit that our country had created the nuclear bomb, and that the plans were, I don't know if I don't think they shared any plans, but just that we had, because there was this race of all of these different countries that were developing the nuclear bomb, and for the world war that was going on at that time. And so eventually went and bombed Japan. And there was cheering in the church when they announced that. And it was such an interesting experience for me personally when she was sharing that with me. And she was sharing really from her heart, and the fear that America was in at the time, that some other country was going to develop that bomb first, and that we would be the ones that would be bombed. And it just gave me a totally different perspective, because all we see is, we look back and we see the aftermath of the bomb, and it's like, oh, that's so sad, that we had to do that. And it did end the war. eventually. And that was part of the reason that there was cheering as well, because all of their young men were gone and fighting in this war and dying. And it just gave me a totally different perspective. And when you were talking about 9/11, I mean, I think about some of the kids, nowadays were not even alive at that time. I remember the age of my kids, and it's been like 24, 25 years ago, something like that. There's kids in college right now that were not even alive during that time. So they weren't personally there experiencing that, to have that passion be generated within them. And the thought came to me as you were talking that the enemy that we're fighting right now, it's like an unknown enemy. We don't even really know who to fight, or where to go to fight. And so that passion, it's like displaced passion. It's not even really, it's hard to even really know what to do with that. It's like, we want to protect, we want to defend our freedom, but we don't really know how to do that. It's an unknown enemy. And what you shared really gave me the answer, is within our own communities, and sharing our own personal experience, and especially experiences that we've had where that passion was, that fire was built within us, and that we within ourselves can know how to defend our freedom, how to protect our freedom, and do it passionately. And there's a specific way that each one of us individually can do that within our communities. Thanks for sharing that, Melinda. I think Kathy had something. It looks like several of you are unmuting, so lots of thoughts to share. Kathy, and then we'll go Phil and Tyree.
Yeah, this is pretty powerful to me, and I just, I almost have to, I just want to be able to expand and explain what's in my heart without getting so overzealous that I frighten people. My daughter came yesterday and was helping us with some yard work to get ready for a 4th of July celebration here tomorrow. And we were talking a little bit about what was going on in the world. And I don't know where this came from. Actually, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of media distortion. But she has bought into the idea that America is a failed experiment. And as I've thought about that, I'm like, that's crazy. So many other, because she was comparing with other countries, and I'm like, America started the revolution of freedom. I mean, maybe not. There's probably a lot that I don't know, but just there's so many people that have fought so vehemently over the years to get into America, out of other countries that were being overrun with tyrants. And it's just crazy to me that thought that a failed experiment, communism was a failed experiment. So I am so grateful for the people who have fought for our freedoms. I was listening to an audio by Bob McEwen about freedom isn't free. And he talks a lot about our economic situation. And this was like years ago that this talk came out, but stands true today. The failed experiment is probably in the way our government has mismanaged funds, and maybe our younger generation, frustrated with the whole money situation. I think there's so much of it that's just not being told. And so the main thing that was coming to my mind was stand up for freedom, stand up for truth. And in our own communities, not just in our physical communities, but there's a lot going on with Facebook and everything. And some things aren't getting shared. It doesn't, this isn't a failed experiment. And there's still the bottom underlying thing. If anybody at any time doesn't like what's going on in America, they can leave, but they're not leaving. But they need to understand what they're fighting for, and the fight needs to be right, and it needs to be standing for truth.
Awesome. Thank you. I really believe that the reason why we have freedom And the reason why our founding fathers were successful in standing against their enemies to maintain their freedom was because they had God on their side.
Yes.
And that is, if there is a failed experiment, it's because people have forgotten that. Thanks, Kathy. Phil.
I'll be brief because I know we're in time here. But when I did my meditation, the first thing that came to me was all the rioting and the riots, caused by Black Lives Matter, and what came to me was that, like, how we remember our past is really what causes the dysfunction or the freedom. And if we remember our captivity, then the dysfunction comes. But when we remember our freedoms and those heroes who sacrificed all to give us the life of our dreams, then we are optimistic and we want to preserve that way. And so I just wanted to just bring that clarification out, that how we remember our past is most important as we move forward.
Wow, super powerful. If we remember our captivity, then we remain captive. If we remember our freedom, then we are free. I 100% agree. Thank you. Tyree, I think you had something, and then Mandy.
Just going along with that, there's a woman that is in my neighborhood that I minister to, and she is from the South, and she's very bitter. And so I think sometimes we also need to have compassion on the other side, but also understand that there are people in power that are working to skew history to create, like Phil was talking about, we need to remember history, but there are people that are working to skew history for their own purposes. And so I'm grateful for the people that continue to speak and teach truth, because understanding our history truthfully and also understanding that these people are skewing it for their own purposes, we can move forward with more direction from God in truth.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you. Mandy.
Yeah, a thought that I kept having was the freedom. There's this song that it talks about that freedom in a state like Maine or Virginia is not across the country line, but it's a state of mind. And the freedom that we truly, truly have is within our own mind. If we allow fear to run and rule us, then we are not free within our own selves.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I know there even has been some question when you mentioned state lines, that my husband and I have had conversations about different states and the choices that their leaders are making. And it's like, well, I'm glad I'm not living in that state. And, just hoping that our elections that are coming up are going to, that we're going to have some really good leaders that are God-fearing and that, can maintain our freedoms. But I love that idea of state of mind, that we are all one. We are all Americans, and we're all one world at this point. I mean, everybody in the world is experiencing some of the same things that we're experiencing here. And we are experiencing things in our land that haven't been experienced before, but other lands have experienced. So, really, it's a beautiful thing that we're all coming together and that we can see ourselves all as one world, one earth, that all lands are equal in some ways right now. And also to allow ourselves to be in the state of mind of freedom. And as we do that, then kind of those lines get blurred and we just become all one people. Thank you. Ruby, did you have one last thought?
Yes, I do. Phil said something that was probably the most profound part of what our freedoms are about. And then that young lady mentioned the South. I spent quite some time in Georgia when I was a little girl. And Camp told us one day, my brother and I, says, you can't come in the barn by yourselves anymore. And we said, well, why? He says, because I'll get hurt. Well, who would want to hurt you, Camp? He says, please don't come in the barn anymore. And we were confused. And my brother and I were 7, and he was 7 and I was 8. And he was Camp. He was a wonderful man, and he always helped us. He taught us how to climb trees and do things, and he taught us about farm equipment. And he says, I'm black.
Mm.
We said, no, you're Camp. You're our friend. He says, no, you need to understand that my skin is a different color than yours. And I said, but you're a human being just like I am. He said, people need to learn that, and they haven't learned that yet.
Awesome. Thank
And
you.
that was the year Kennedy died. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. I grew up in that era too, Ruby. So I remember some of those things, and I was born in Georgia. So I understand what you're saying. Personal freedoms, remembering that we are all children of God. How appropriate for us to end our discussion with that and move into our personal permission process. Go ahead and take a deep breath. Lots of really awesome ideas and thoughts have been shared. Thank you. Really powerful call today. Take one more deep breath. And the thought that I have today is, in your own personal lives, in your own personal thoughts and ideas and beliefs, where are you limiting your personal freedom? What are the limiting beliefs that are keeping you bound, that are keeping you captive, that are keeping you remembering your captivity instead of remembering your freedom? What are the limiting beliefs and the decisions that you've made about yourself, or the decisions about you that you've made about your experiences in the past, that are stopping you from remembering your freedom? And as you're becoming more clear with what those limiting beliefs are and what those limiting decisions about yourself are, examine what the cost is. If you go about remembering your captivity and not allowing yourself to be free, what is the cost to yourself, to your family, to your country, to the world, to God's bigger plan? What is the cost of having those limiting beliefs? And as you're becoming more aware of what these limiting beliefs have been producing in your life, the outcome that they've been creating for you, make the choice right now to give yourself permission to be free of them. And if you're ready to give yourself permission to be free of these limiting ideas, say yes.
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 Awesome. So what are some new beliefs? Get 2 or 3 new beliefs that will allow you to be free of these limiting beliefs and to start creating something different as a free soul. What are your new beliefs that free you inside, regardless of what's going on around us in the world, regardless of what other people think, regardless of what's ahead, what our future holds in our country, or the separation that might be caused even within families of different ideas that are embraced? What new beliefs are going to keep you personally free in a state of mind of freedom? because that you do have control over. And with this list of new beliefs, I invite you to, as you're breathing in this next time, take a deep breath and breathe these new beliefs in. Allow them to become part of you, that they're not just pretty ideas, but they are actual truths, that these new beliefs can actually get you into a space of freedom. Just as Viktor Frankl talked about people in concentration camps, as long as their minds and their hearts and their souls and their attitudes remained free, they would live. But as soon as they would give up on that idea of freedom and see their captivity, that they would die. That this is your opportunity to claim your freedom regardless of what's going on around you. And as you're stepping into that space of freedom, of being in the state of mind and the state of your heart and soul that is free, what is the one most important thing that you could do today to communicate personal freedom? To really anchor in the idea of personal freedom, to feel it in yourself and also to communicate it, to radiate it so that others can feel that too. What's your inspired shortcut today to feeling and perpetuating personal freedom? We are at the end of our time today. I encourage you to go to our Facebook group, Breakthrough with Gratitude, and share your thoughts there if you have some things that you'd like to share about your experience today. And anyone who is feeling like they need some extra support in this area, I would love to have a 15-minute conversation with you. And all you have to do is just go to askwylene.com, and that will take you to my calendar, and you can schedule a 15-minute call. It's free. And this is just a free gift that I offer to anyone who is needing that extra support. AskWylene.com. Thank you all for being on the call today. This has been really powerful. I am going to post this on my personal page as well. I feel like it's very appropriate to post this on your personal page as we are heading into the celebration of our independence tomorrow. And so anyone that feels like this would be something that would help you and others to feel more personal freedom and be in that state of mind of freedom, I encourage you to post it as well with information, maybe a link to our Breakthrough with Gratitude Facebook group as well, so that they can join us another time if they would like to. So thank you for being on our call today. We'll look forward to being back together on Monday, 7 a.m. Mountain Time. Continue your gratitude practice, your daily GPS throughout the weekend, and we'll be back together on Monday. Thank you. Have a wonderful 4th of July.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. And I encourage you to tune in every day to the Daily Gratitude Call. And the Daily Gratitude Call happens live every weekday morning. I'd love to have you join. So to find out how to join live, go to my website, wylenebenson.com. Thanks for tuning in.